I'm so scared. This is a bad idea. Hi, it's me, Penelope, and it's been a minute. If this isn't your tea, that's okay. Stick around. I got fun stuff on the way. But today, we're here to talk about body dysmorphic disorder. I have to give a trigger warning for, are you ready? Suicide, suicidal ideation, disordered eating. I think that covers everything. Also, I am not a doctor. Do I look like a doctor? This is not medical advice. What I'm gonna share in this video is an amalgamation of things that I've learned through anecdotal experience. You should definitely do your own research. I just hope that my experience can help some people. And I can't talk about that without talking about other things that I've learned and speculated within myself. So here we go. Body dysmorphic disorder is, as far as I know, generally considered to be related to OCD, characterized by obsessive thoughts and compulsive behaviors. The list of symptoms is not super consistent, and it's also super kind of vague. I've got Mayo Clinic right here. Mayo Clinic says,
signs and symptoms of body dysmorphic disorder include being extremely preoccupied with the perceived flaw in appearance that to others can't be seen or appears minor. Strong belief that you have a defect in your appearance that makes you ugly or deformed. Belief that others take special notice of your appearance in a negative way or mock you. Engaging in behaviors aimed at fixing or hiding the perceived flaw that are difficult to resist or control, such as frequently checking the mirror, grooming, or skin picking, attempting to hide perceived flaws with styling, makeup, or clothes, constantly comparing your appearance with others, frequently seeking reassurance about your appearance from others, having perfectionist tendencies, seeking cosmetic procedures with little satisfaction, avoiding social situations.
I would also like to add, last but not least, suicidal ideation. It's a big one. Usually people who have body dysmorphic disorder have a certain feature in particular that they are fixated on. That's not always the case.
The most common features people tend to fixate about include face, such as nose, complexion, wrinkles, acne, and other blemishes. Hair, such as appearance, thinning, and baldness. Skin and vein appearance. Breast size, muscle size and tone. Genitalia.
Now that you've listened to a list of the symptoms, I know what you're thinking. Penny, these all sound like things that most people experience at least from time to time. And that's true. So how do you differentiate body dysmorphic disorder from the general ickiness of being in a human body? That's why I want to talk about my experience. And I hope that it will shed some light on what body dysmorphia can look like. I would also like to say that if you don't have BDD, or you don't have a diagnosis, or you're not sure, this video is for anyone who can gain anything from it. So if anything I say resonates with you, then it's for you. Now we're gonna discuss my experience. It doesn't happen like this for everyone, I think. For a lot of people, it happens sort of gradually. For me, body dysmorphia hit pretty dramatically, pretty suddenly. I always had self-image issues, but I wouldn't have called them disordered until one fateful day when I noticed a patch of eczema on my eyelid. It was genuinely negligible. You couldn't really see it unless you were like up close and personal with me and looking for it. But these compulsions started, and I was devastated. My thoughts were running so fast and so repetitively in circles that I was physically nauseous. And I knew that something was wrong immediately, but I didn't know what. I was almost overnight suicidal. I thought that I needed to kill myself as soon as possible. From the moment that I noticed the eczema on my eyelid, my brain created a binary narrative. I had to fix the skin or I had to kill myself. And there was no in between. Those were my two options. Suddenly, I was not living in the same world that I was living in previously. I was not living in the same world as the people around me. Everyone that I looked at felt distant. Talking to people was weird. I couldn't understand how anybody could say hello to me. I was thinking about how to kill myself. At the time, I had reservations about age, but that's also not uncommon for people with BDD to be like really concerned about signs of age. I thought I was too old to live. And all of this was because of this tiny patch of eczema on my eyelid that nobody could even see. BDD isn't rational. And I knew that what I was feeling was not correct, but I didn't know what to do about that. And I was embarrassed to feel so much over something so superficial. So I didn't tell anyone. From the moment it started, it was unbearable. And it went through so many phases. It just kept getting worse. My behavior changed drastically. I started checking all the time. Mirror. It was interfering with work. I kept leaving my station to run to the bathroom to look at myself and see the same thing I saw every time I looked in the mirror. Eventually I started bringing a hand mirror to work, and it felt so bad to be in it all the time because I thought it made me look vain, but I was not having fun. I just couldn't stop looking in the mirror. I couldn't even watch 30 minutes of a Netflix show without picking the mirror up like 20 or 30 times to just look and stare at myself, and I would put it down and I felt like I couldn't breathe. I just had to pick it back up again. The checking in particular clued me in that something compulsive was happening, but I didn't know about body dysmorphic disorder at the time. So I would look up symptoms of OCD, which rung a few bells, but didn't really line up with what was going on that was interfering with my life in this way. So it was always kind of a dead end road. I started doing research on procedures designed for people like in their 50s. I still think about procedures constantly. I'm like sick to my stomach thinking about how much money I spent on creams and oils and serums and stuff that did nothing. Extensive research about what can cause skin issues, various skin issues, eczema and such. And I started taking selfies and like videos of myself. Not cute ones, but I would also watch myself on video when I got back around to filming YouTube videos that never made it to the web. I remember one day in particular, I had a video that I edited that I never saw the light of day, and it wound up being like 2 minutes long. It was a music thing, and I remember spending the entire day watching that video on a loop. I couldn't stop looking at myself. Do I look cute? Do I look normal? Do I look pretty? Do I look gross? Do I look average? Whatever. But there was never a consensus. It just led to more of the same behavior. I was stuck. I didn't know. I knew something was wrong. Again, I was like, something is wrong. Like my brain is broken, but I didn't have the information to identify what that was. I started avoiding the sun religiously. I discovered that the sun is the #1 cause of premature skin aging. And that was it for me. The sun became the plague. I wouldn't so much as sit next to a window. I never went outside, slathered sunscreen on so often, so thick. Too much sunscreen, too often. Some people will say there's no such thing. Not everybody has sensitive skin. I was doing a lot of harm to my skin with the excessive amount of sunscreen. Not good sunscreen. Poor, the greasy, oily, thick American sunscreen. I was miserable. My skin never looked like skin. Now I am wary of the sun, but back then it was like a fear, a morbid fear. And it was a miserable, miserable way to live, to go about life, to go about a day. We need the sun, believe it or not. And last but not least, probably the worst behavior that I have is skin picking. Skin picking is particularly frustrating because when you have BDD, especially if your fixation is your skin. It's like, whether you like it or not, it's like the most important thing in your life is your skin all of a sudden. God damn it. And you're destroying it with your own hands and you can't stop. In the moment, skin picking, for me, it feels like a desperation to fix it, to smooth it over. But then it's like entering a fugue state, and by the time I even have a thought in my brain to not do it, my face is bloody and swollen and damaged. There's a patch of skin here. My T-zone is like a hot air balloon shape that is permanently damaged because I with it. Isn't that great? And also the guilt that follows having done that to yourself and doing it to yourself repetitively, it sucks. Sometimes I just have to like lay down and cry because it's so upsetting every time it happens, and it just keeps happening no matter what I do. It is a lot better now. So yeah, the skin picking sucked. It sucked. It sucks. It's so hard not to have control. Compulsions. God, as things progressed, my skin genuinely became an obsession. The obsession aspect of it is hard to explain. I don't think that obsession is something that I understood until I developed one. I think that I thought that I was obsessed with Hunter x Hunter, that I was obsessed with pastels and music, and that I was obsessed with clowns and K-pop and whatever. I thought I was obsessed with these things, right? Not even close. When everything kicked off, the eyelid and all, it was as if all I could see was eyelids. I know that sounds weird, and it was. You know when you see a person who has like very beautiful, striking eyes, or they have like a very interesting nose, or something, you notice that thing, it stands out to you. To me, that thing was eyelids. For everyone in the world. It felt like I couldn't even hear people talking sometimes over their eyelids. It was so strange. Everything that I cared about in my life suddenly took a back burner. I couldn't be present with anything or enjoy anything or focus on anything that was not, if it wasn't an active effort towards fixing my skin or planning my own death. I couldn't be present with it or grasp it or focus on it. It wasn't as if I didn't care about things anymore. It was that suddenly there was something that I cared about more, and it pushed everything else out of the way. And I couldn't feel the things I was supposed to feel towards the things that were supposed to be important in my life. All I could think about was improving my appearance or death. I knew it was bad, but I couldn't change it. One of the things that was listed as a symptom for body dysmorphic disorder is comparison to others. So I just want to describe kind of what it was like for me when it started, to maybe kind of provide some perspective as to what that could look like. I felt overwhelming resentment towards everybody who had a smooth eyelid when it started. It didn't matter what kind of trauma they had in their life that trumped anything that I'd ever been through. If they had a smooth eyelid, my thoughts would go off the rails comparing my life to theirs. The entire time, these thoughts were not always conscious, sometimes they were, always intrusive. I was aware that it wasn't rational, and I knew that something was wrong, but I didn't know how to stop it. And it was the comparing was like aggressive and distracting, and it usually was like a thought cycle that ended with suicidality, and I should just kill myself. I couldn't so much as enjoy a cup of coffee anymore because I just couldn't be present with it. It wasn't like looking in the mirror was distressing and then I could walk away from the mirror and live my life. What I saw in the mirror followed me everywhere and tainted everything so that I couldn't enjoy anything. I couldn't live. It was a plague. These stupid little things about my skin, and I couldn't stop it, even though I chose for myself not to center those things in my life. They took center. So, my behavior changed. All I could think about was my skin, fixing my appearance, suicidality, making plans, really not good. I very quickly disappeared from the world when all of this started happening. I stopped going out unless it was necessary. I did see my friends a few times. I had a very difficult time enjoying myself. Not only did I stop doing social things, but I stopped talking to my friends very much. It was just so hard. It wasn't just that I was physically self-conscious to be around them. That was a factor. It was that I was so upset and I couldn't eat dinner with someone or play a game or have a conversation and pretend like all these things were not going through my head 1,000 miles per hour all the time. I couldn't pretend like things were normal, but I also couldn't tell anyone what was happening because I was embarrassed. And I felt a lot of guilt because in my mind, I was failing to find the solution to fixing my skin, and I was probably going to die. So continuing to interact with my friends and my family felt like leading them on when I knew that I wasn't going to survive. So it was hard to pretend like I was living a life and being a part of a world that I felt so separated from. After a while, I wouldn't say things started to get better, but I started to get stronger. I started talking to my friends a little bit. I would play Animal Crossing. I made a few videos, a couple videos. I am missing a nail. These are they're so cute though if you don't look too close. After a while, I started to get stronger. I started to do some things. I wanted to see my friends. And there was this thing that would happen that was not a conscious process, but that I am able to identify in hindsight, where if I would start to think that I could press play on any part of my life that I had paused, it was like I had to run to the mirror and ask for permission. Permission to see a friend, permission to write a song, permission to enjoy something, permission to be accepting of my situation. And permission was always denied. You have to fix this first. You have to fix this, but you're never gonna fix this. So you may as well kill yourself. And the sooner the better, because you're leading people on, you're leading yourself on, you're suffering. This is never gonna change. That was generally the cycle. When I did try to venture out into the world, it was so hard and I didn't have tolerance for it. I just needed to be alone. My doctors, when I later on down the line started receiving care, they were very concerned about my social isolation, and they were always pushing me to force myself. They seemed to have the idea that I wasn't challenging myself at all. I was always challenging myself. And I think they wanted me to venture out into the world, and it would be like exposure therapy, and I would build a tolerance for it or realize that it wasn't so bad, not all the horrible realities that my brain was conjuring were false. But that's not how I felt when I went out. I went out and I was getting weaker, not stronger. And I didn't know how to express that to them because I don't think that they understood how hard I was fighting what was going on and how much I was wrestling with it and how much I'd done to dig myself out of this hole. I think it looked like I was just burying my head in the sand because I was so socially non-functional. But I was doing exactly what I needed to do to survive at the time. And what I've learned recently is that it's actually quite common for people with body dysmorphic disorder to disappear from society. But I didn't know that then. And my doctors never made that apparent to me. They were always just pushing me to push myself. And it made me feel like I was failing all the time. And that guilt just grew. For me, I think a certain level of grief was necessary. I had to grieve what I used to look like. I had to grieve in real time the years that I was losing, I had to grieve the pain. It was a lot of grieving, and it required a lot of time and a lot of social isolation. I became miserable. The magnitude of the misery that I felt is impossible to describe. So, I'm not gonna harp on that for very long. Just believe me, it was constant misery. I think that that's true of anything that you experience. You can't describe it to somebody who has not experienced the same thing. I think everybody has something like that. We all experience pain, but pain is so diverse, and I don't know how to describe the way that I felt, except that it was bad. It was just really, really bad. I lost years of my life. I lost years of my youth. That's actually a concept that I've heard a few separate people express recently. One girl on YouTube, who I follow her because she has snakes, she was talking about her drug addiction and how she was like 22 and all of a sudden she's 26. She lost herself to this thing for all these years. You just wake up one day and you're like, why did time keep going? How is it possible? A lot of people felt that way after COVID because their whole life just paused, but time kept moving. It's not a good feeling. It felt very distinctly like being trapped in a nightmare, and I couldn't wake up. And I kept thinking, feeling like I was just gonna wake up and my life was gonna be normal again. My sibling is screaming their head off downstairs. Oh my god. Why do kids just scream? Oh my god. The suicidality that followed my body dysmorphia was like its own living entity. Unfortunately, I was walking with death every day. It was the only thing I had to look forward to, but it would have been a tragedy. And I couldn't make anybody understand the tragedy that was already happening, the way that it felt, the level of suffering, warranted or not. And, excuse me for a moment, do you like this mug? It's got lipstick on it. So, in my mind, my suicidality, which was very, very bad, was directly proportional to how spoiled I was for wanting this thing that was so superficial. I was Veruca Salt, throwing a tantrum because I wanted a squirrel, and I had all these other things in my life to be grateful for and to enjoy, and I couldn't have any of them because I wanted a goddamn squirrel. The suicidality that follows body dysmorphia is sneaky. It's isolating, it's intentional. It does this to save you from imperfection because that's what your brain craves so desperately for some reason. This is just something I wrote. This was rarely a verbal internal dialogue. It was a constant undercurrent that tainted everything. And the kicker is, the reason that Veruca is so hung up on being pretty is because she just is. She's Veruca. She wants it because she just wants it. She has more than enough to be happy. But because she decided she wants a stupid squirrel, I have to suffer forever. Veruca dear, you have many marvelous pets. All I've got at home is 1 pony and 2 dogs and 4 cats and 6 bunny rabbits and 2 parakeets and 3 canaries and a green parrot and a turtle and a silly old hamster. I want a squirrel. That is exactly how I sounded to myself in my head. So, 2 years went by, and I was watching a YouTube video, listening to a YouTube video. Somebody mentioned body dysmorphia. I wanted the context for this YouTube video. So I looked up body dysmorphia. I looked up BDD for the first time, and I was shook. I screamed in my car. It's so hard to explain how monumental this moment was for me because this whole time, all of this was happening, I thought that it was my fault, that I was the only one in the world who felt like this. And I thought that there was no help for me. It felt so personal, and it was like my dirty little secret. So it was like a weird thing to open WebMD and like read the story of my life. It was like invasive a little bit. It changed everything. My battery's low. Shut up. Let me go change my battery. Okay, and we're back. So, as I was saying, obviously, discovering that you have a disorder and knowing what that disorder is not a cure for the disorder, but it does help. So when I discovered that I had BDD, now all of a sudden, that guilt was not gone, but it relieved it so much. I had so much less guilt about how much I was feeling, about the social isolation, about the suicidality. Suddenly I could talk about it. I didn't have to be embarrassed because great time to mow the lawn. What would life be without these little inconveniences? Now, I knew I had a disorder. So I could tell people I have this disorder and this is what it looks like. You know, instead of telling people I want to die because my eyelid or whatever, all I can think about is my skin, I can tell them I have a disorder and it's not rational, as opposed to listing out these irrational behaviors and thoughts that I knew sounded superficial and irrational. Suicidality, which before had felt like fate, like my fate, like my destiny, like everything in the universe was a sign to me that it was time for my life to be over. That became a fairly common symptom of a fairly common disorder. It was a symptom. It wasn't fate. It wasn't this cosmic darkness. It wasn't my fault. It didn't take body dysmorphia away, but it changed the lens by which I saw everything. And all of a sudden, I could tell people what was going on. I had the vocabulary, so it eased a lot of the guilt. It helps with the isolation, emotionally and like socially. I realized that I was not Veruca. Veruca was living in my brain. Should we read the script? I'm gonna read it. Are you ready? This is under BDD, stream of consciousness. Veruca Salt. I thought I was her, spoiled and rotten. Turns out she lives in my brain, and she wants a specific version of my face. So she sits up there and flips all the switches off in my brain. You can't feel this, you can't enjoy that. You can't think about anything else until I get what I want. And if I don't get what I want, neither do you. And I don't care if what I want is impossible. I'm not a rational part of you. It's my way or it's death. It didn't matter what I valued inherently or what I decided. Veruca said, I want a squirrel and I'm forever. That intentionally created the binary. So now I had something to fight. It wasn't all me. It was my brain. So I went to Dr. Amon's clinic in Atlanta. They do brain scans. It was very insightful. I got my brain scanned. I had a brain doctor who looked at the scans and described them to me. He was very nice, and he explained to me that there's a part of your brain that is responsible for emotional flexibility. That is something I might describe as looking in the mirror, seeing something you don't like, and being able to walk away from the mirror and continue to live your life. When you lack emotional flexibility, if you look in the mirror and you see a problem, you are a problem. Throw the whole body away. It's perfectionism. Whenever you lean into black and white thinking, all or nothing, that all takes place in a specific area of the brain. And that part of the brain can malfunction. And when that happens, you might see OCD or you might see BDD. It's truly fascinating stuff. So now that I knew that I had a disorder and what that disorder was, it didn't make it easier to take steps towards recovery, but it illuminated the path. You know, it gave me something to work with besides suicide, so I could begin to move on with my life, even though it didn't not feel like that's what I was doing, because it's been such a slow and painful process. But things have changed far more than I ever thought that they could. I feel joy sometimes. I feel like I still have BDD, but I feel so much better. And that required, for me, a lot of bluffing. Sitting down to do things I like, even though Veruca Salt is in my brain screaming at me that it's fake and that I'm doing the wrong thing and that I'm not enjoying this and that I'm settling and that there's a better way and that I know what it is. Forcing myself to do it anyway. Break all these rules. I had to do whatever. I had to work. It was work. It took a lot of work. It was a lot of pretending. But from that fake jumping off point, I started to feel bits and pieces of like real joy that would sneak up on me here and there. And it wasn't the same, but it was so much better than what I had been feeling before. And it was something that I didn't think was possible at all. I convinced myself was not possible, probably in order to protect myself from the pain. I had to learn to pretend to care about things that I knew that I did care about, but that my brain wouldn't let me focus on. And it took practice. A lot of practice. I've learned a lot from having body dysmorphic disorder. The way that I see the world is very different. The way that I see the body is very different. I've experienced a lot of spiritual growth. Everything's different in a lot of good ways. If I could go back in time and wave a magic wand and delete body dysmorphia from my past, I would hit that button so fast. I would do anything to not have had to go through everything that I went through and continue to go through. That is a very appealing fantasy, but it's not reality. The reality is that everybody has something. I want to talk more about my recovery and how much better I'm doing. Even now, though, it's hard because in my brain, if I'm not at 100%, I'm at 0%. The reality is I'm somewhere in between. But if I start to even try to express gratitude over where I am or express joy outwardly, it's hard. It's like physically hard. It's like I can feel it in my body, the resistance. But things are a lot better. And I want people to know, because what if you're where I was? You should know that it can get better. But in order for it to get better, you gotta do a little bit of work. So let's talk about treatment. Something I want to say, first and foremost, about getting treatment is that it is frustrating. If you have body dysmorphic disorder, it can sometimes be sort of resistant to treatment. Part of the reason that is because your brain has a tendency to decide on a truth that isn't rational and stick to its guns. And treatment in general, regardless of what your shtick is, can just be very, very difficult because you have to delve into that like dark stuff. What time is it? Who mows the lawn at 7:30 at night? He finally stopped mowing his lawn. Here we go. Treatment can be extremely frustrating. No matter what you're getting treated for, it can be hard to do the work and to find the resources and utilize them and to be consistent. It's hard. What I've learned is that there's usually a thing or two that you can take away from the experience, even if parts of it are hard or unpleasant or even disappointing or upsetting. There's usually something that you can gain, and so I recommend going into treatment looking for that one thing that you can take away, even if every part of the experience isn't perfect. When I first went to get treatment, this was actually long before I knew I had body dysmorphia. So I went to the doctor over suicidality, and I saw a psychiatric nurse practitioner. She asked me what these feelings were like, these feelings of suicidality. And I had never talked about that sort of thing before with another person, so I naturally hesitated. In my moment of hesitation, she said, like it would just be better if you weren't here. Whoa! What she did was she put words in my mouth that made it seem as if I was feeling passively suicidal as opposed to actively suicidal. She didn't give me room to even begin to communicate all of the crazy things that were like running through my mind. And when she said what she said, I responded, yes, because it was not untrue, but that wasn't the most accurate truth. The most accurate truth was that I was feeling actively suicidal, like viscerally aching in my body, need to go kill myself suicidal. And she didn't listen to me. She rushed me. She said other things too. She belittled my feelings. And then before I left, she said, I think most people in America have some form of depression or anxiety, and you just fall in that category. To this day, I don't know why she said that to me. It made me feel like, oh, everybody's feeling this? Then why am I the one baby crying to the doctor? Why am I the one who is like having to put my entire life on hold and like can't even hold up a normal conversation? It deterred me from seeking care in the future. Not completely, but partially. And it made me feel bad. And then, just right about 2 years later, I went back after I learned that I had a disorder. And although I didn't technically have the diagnosis yet, but I knew. There was a different lady there when I went back. And she, quite frankly, was a bad. And she listened to me, and she never put words in my mouth. And she clocked everything. She paid attention. She took my problems more seriously than I took them. She was a human, which means she wasn't perfect, but she was my person for a while. She was a good fit, and she was good at her job. And as sucky as it is, doctors are humans, and they err. Sometimes you get a doctor who is maybe a bad egg. Sometimes you get a doctor that just, you don't mesh well with them. And that goes for any kind of doctor. That goes for a psych, a physician, a gynecologist, dermatologist, any kind of doctor. They're not robots. It takes time sometimes to find the right therapist, the right clinic, the right whatever. So my advice is just to advocate for yourself and don't give up the fight too soon, because when you do find someone who can help you in any way, there is something to be gained from that. In a similar vein, medication can be tricky. Medication is kind of like Russian roulette. It can take like 6 to 8 weeks to see the benefits of any medication, but you notice side effects right away. Some medications are not worth their weight in side effects, and it can take a very, very long time to find a medication that is effective for whatever it is you're going through, especially if you don't have a proper diagnosis. I was on a jillion different medications that did little to nothing, but finally, eventually, I landed on one that does help me. And I was able to actually see what it was doing to my brain, because I happened to be taking it around the time that I got a brain scan at Dr. Amon's clinic in Atlanta, and the brain doctor was able to point to the diagram and say, this is where it's working and what it's doing. It's frustrating. It's frustrating because it feels like having crutches. It feels like walking on crutches. I just want to fling them out of the room and never think about them again. But I also want to walk. So I take these meds, and I was kind of being a baby before. It's not that bad taking these meds. I feel so much better for a lot of reasons. I've made changes to my diet that have helped a lot. I had a sugar problem, especially when I was really, really depressed. Sugar was my drug of choice, and I've since drastically changed my habits, and I feel different. I've cut way back on things that I used to be addicted to that were making my brain harder to work with. So now I eat what you might call a not plant-based but plant-predominant diet, and that is what works for me. My body feels better, my skin looks better, and that helps my mental health. My mood in general is so much better. But it wasn't easy to get there, and there was disordered eating along the way, which is why I want to be sensitive and, urge you to be careful if you're gonna go messing around with your diet. Communicate with somebody, take baby steps, and make minor adjustments that are manageable. You don't need to fall into these traps. For me, what I've decided on is gluten-free, plant-predominant, and that's good for me. And even that, but it's not perfect. But it helps me so much that I would be remiss to not mention that your diet does affect your brain function and how you feel in your body. Not everybody has the means to just eat healthy, whatever that means. But there are things we can do. That being said, it would also be very silly of me not to talk about the fact that not everybody can just seek treatment. Not everybody has access to healthcare. Not everybody has insurance. I don't have insurance. But you would be surprised by the resources that might be available in your community. It's not the same as having full access to like regular healthcare, but there are facilities that might help you if you don't have insurance. The place that I go to is a Christian facility. You do not have to be Christian to go there, but it is a Christian facility. They are working in the name of Jesus. They charge on a sliding scale based off of income. So I bring in my income information and they will charge me depending on that. And there are things like that available if you look for them. So just because you don't have insurance, all I'm saying is don't throw your hands in the air and not even try. I don't know what all is available in what areas, and I can't guarantee that you'll be able to find a place like the place that I found. It is discount care, so there are downsides to that, but it's so much better than no care. I can get the medications I need, you know. I got to talk to a psychiatric nurse practitioner. So poke around, ask around, see if there's anything you can find in your area. If I can find anything kind of universally helpful, like a facility that'll help you find things in your area, I will link it below. But yeah, it's hard. I think treatment is important, but I also understand that not everybody can just do it. It sucks. And to top this all off, I would like to leave you with some advice. If you are struggling with body dysmorphia or anything adjacent, everybody's story is different. So in conclusion, if you have a BDD or anything of this nature, here's what I want you to know. Whatever you're feeling feels permanent, but it's not. If you're going to live, the only way out is through. And you feel like you can't do it, but you can. It just takes work and time, and it hurts, but you're not suffering alone. I never thought that there would be a day that I wasn't thinking about my goddamn eyelid. And yet here we are. You can't see it when you're in it, but the impossible recovery is so much more possible than you think. Like so much more possible than you think it is. I know from experience. I feel joy now. It's not over, you know? So give it a real shot, okay? Don't put my suffering to waste. This video was hard to make. Now, this maybe should be a separate video, but tips and tricks. This is like stuff that helps me, so if it doesn't help you, you don't have to listen to me. Let's dive into it. Tips and tricks. Speed round. Unfollow people who trigger you on social media. There are people that I cannot keep up with. I can't follow Ariana Grande. I can't really look at Ariana Grande. Why her? I don't know. I mean, she's gorgeous, but it's like something specific about her. There are other people like this too. There are a lot of beautiful people in the world, but there are some people who are just, there's something specific about them that I just can't look at them. I get triggered. Ariana Grande, Chu of Luna, Kenny JD. Oh my god, I love her. I can't watch her video. It makes me feel crazy. I can't do it. There are certain people that just do that to me. Even though there are so many beautiful people in the world, especially now that my perspective has changed since having body dysmorphia, I see beauty very differently. I see it in places that I didn't see it before, and I see it more often than I did before. And I think people are so beautiful. But it's not that. It's not, oh, so beautiful. It's like a specific something that I can't always put my finger on. That's very triggering. And you might know what that's like. And it's okay to unfollow somebody who triggers you, whether that is Kim Kardashian or your very best friend. It doesn't have to be petty. If it's someone you know and they're concerned about it, you can be honest with them. Too beautiful. I can only watch K-pop. I love K-pop. I can only watch it in small doses. Skin. Ooh, ooh. Ideally, if you can get off social media altogether or like greatly reduce it, even better. Not everybody can do that, but if you can do that, that's great. I spend a lot more time on like YouTube and Reddit than Instagram or TikTok. Things that are really fast and visual like that can be a lot for anyone. So if you can cut back, that's my advice. But I think everybody kind of knows that. Let's move on. Low light in the bathroom. This is gonna help with skin picking. It's also going to help with general distress of having to see yourself in the mirror. If you can lower the lights, it makes everything better. If you can do a lamp in the bathroom, if your bathroom has two sides, if you can do lighting on the other side, if you can do hall light with the door open, anything you can do to use low lighting anytime you need to be in the bathroom. Don't do something stupid. Don't do like candles that you're gonna knock over or something, but try it out, especially if you struggle with skin picking.
Another tip that I wanted to mention is writing on the mirror with like expo markers. This is actually something that my therapist when I was in therapy recommended that I do, and I was really I still do it. I think it's very helpful because it gives you something to latch onto in the mirror beside yourself, and if you write like mantras or something, you have somewhere like physical for your eyes to redirect. So writing on the mirror has been really helpful for me. The only thing is, if I like draw a picture or I write something on the mirror, it's only a couple days before my brain gets used to it being there and I don't even see it anymore and I'm back to like whatever it is. But it's nice to leave notes for yourself and stuff. You just gotta switch it up fairly frequently for it to be effective.
Also, conversation distance. If you're in the mirror and you're looking at yourself and you are distressed about anything that you can only see this close, please remember conversation distance. You should never be belly aching over something that you cannot see from conversation distance, which I would describe as the distance at which you would have a healthy conversation with another human being. That is how far away you should be in the mirror. Obviously, not a cure. What I'm not saying is that if you continue to belly ache over whatever concerns you may have, that you shouldn't be. What I'm saying is that if you can try to build the habit of keeping a conversation distance from the mirror, it will help a lot with these minor hyperfixations that you have. Probably will help with skin picking. And if you have a magnifying mirror, throw it in the trash. Your eyebrows will be fine. Next, don't compare the worst version of yourself to the best version of somebody else. Or rather, make sure that you catch yourself when you do. There's this funny thing that happens where you sit in your bed and you scroll TikTok and everybody's got the lashes and the filters and the makeup and the lighting and the fits and golden hour, and it's the best of everything. And you get this kind of format in your head as you're watching that, and then you put your phone down and you go to the bathroom to go pee, you catch yourself in the mirror, you got grease all over your face, your hair's all jacked up, you know, you're wearing clothes that don't match because you just roll out of bed, and because of that direct juxtaposition, you can't help but compare your like house goblin form to somebody else's final form. And really, everybody has a final form. No matter how attractive you are, you have a final form. Everybody has a final form. Everybody has a primal form that comes out at home. And it's just not fair to look at other people's modified forms and then see yourself in your like natural state just in passing and berate yourself. You feel like you look so terrible. And most likely you just look normal. You've just forgotten what normal people look like. Normal people have greasy skin, wrinkles, acne, cellulite, discoloration, texture, and it's not disgusting. It's just human. So I'm not gonna ask you not to compare yourself to other people, but maybe try to catch yourself comparing your primal form to other people's final form, which a lot of the time isn't even real. Manually focusing on sensation. This took me a long time. There is this thing that happens where you can't enjoy anything because of the way that you look, even when the thing that you're trying to enjoy has no relation to your appearance, like having a cup of coffee. So my advice is to practice being mindful of how things feel in your body, textures, temperatures. You have to remind yourself to remember what it feels like to just exist. Your body is a vessel for you to do the things that you want to do, not a prerequisite for you to enjoy those things. Your body should not be holding you back from doing things you want to do. Your body makes you available to do those things. And you can sort of combat the crippling distress of being perceived by feeling the things that humans were meant to feel, that we sometimes forget all about because we're too focused on other things like appearance. Okay, next, there's this other thing that happens where you might see yourself in lighting that is favorable, in a mirror that is kind to you, and you might feel okay with the way that you look in that moment. And then you might see yourself in another mirror where the lighting is not so favorable, and you don't like the way that you look. And somehow the negative image that you have of yourself negates everything. But that doesn't have to be the case. At some point, I just started deciding that this is my true form. The good lighting, the mirrors that are nice to me, the times when I managed to not look too close and I was semi-okay with what I saw, it's fine. I think, to latch onto that and to place your identity there instead of doing the opposite and placing your identity in the worst possible versions of yourself that you can find. Lighting makes a huge difference in the way that people look. It's bananas. If you're looking at yourself on film, it's gonna be different. It can depend on the lens. Makeup is huge. If you're using filters, there are so many things that can affect your immediate appearance. I struggle in the daylight. I can't stand the way that I look in direct sunlight. And it used to break me down so much because I would think, well, that's what I really look like? That's what I really look like. But no, I don't think so. I think what I really look like is who I am when I have the freedom to dress myself up and control the lighting. It's how I look in my favorite pictures. You know, I think you have more control than you think you do over like which images of yourself you choose to latch onto. Because chances are there's a jillion of them. So many things can make a difference in the way that you look and the way that you perceive. So, I don't know, pick the one you like and think about it more. And if you don't like any of them, your time is coming. Or you can practice self-indifference, which is also a beautiful thing. Something else I'd like to say is that it's perfectly fine to improve your appearance externally. Doctors and sometimes other people can make you feel like you are like focusing on the wrong things when you go to great lengths to look better. But I say it's okay as long as you're not replacing internal work with the external work. I think that there is a balance to strike between the two of them. And from a professional perspective, I understand how fixing yourself from the inside out can and should and will be prioritized. But I also think that, I don't know, if you have asthma, you're not gonna get a job at a Bath and Body Works or at like a sawmill, right? You're gonna go somewhere that is conducive to your disorder. And I think that like improving your whatever it is you're concerned about, like making sure your skin is healthy and like for me, clearing my acne was huge. I still have acne, but it used to be like really, really bad. And I was dysmorphic about it. It exacerbated things so horribly, and it was like a notable change in my mental health when I was able to clear my acne. And I think there's value in that. That's just not the most valuable thing, and it's not the only place where there is value, so there is a balance. But I think it's also okay to like have a concern. You know, we're just trying to make sure these things are not controlling our lives. And last but not least, compliments. They can be really triggering. Accept that now so that when you go out in the world, if anybody has anything positive to say about your appearance, you can accept it and move on. I can think of many reasons why compliments might be triggering. It can also feel like people are pitying you or lying to you or like they're delusional. It can just cause this like rush of emotion. You're not crazy. It's like I think it's fairly common. Our goal, I think, is just to not take it out on the people dishing out the compliments. Take the compliment in good faith. If it makes you feel good, great. If it doesn't, you don't have to dwell on it. Take it gracefully and move on with your life. Oh God, goodness gracious. I think that's everything. Thanks for watching if you made it this far. If you made it this far, I know you're suffering. This has actually been kind of fun, kind of cathartic. I hope something I said resonated with someone, somewhere. Feel free to comment if you want anything more. I can go more in depth. Like I said, tip of the iceberg. There are many of us, and we need more community. We must gather children and educate. I hope you'll stick around for some of the fun stuff that I'm working on. Music, tarot, toys, fashion, all kind of stuff. I feel so much better. I hope the audio is not jacked up. Sorry if it was. Hopefully things will smooth out moving forward because I do want to be doing stuff like this more. It's hard to get into the groove, you know? I'm out of practice. So this has been Penelope on Body Dysmorphia. Come back and see me again soon, okay? Stay out of trouble. Thanks for watching. Bye.